Welcome back, guys. Today we are talking about a little bit of back training. Now, a couple things I just want to highlight before we really get and dive into the depths of this is one, a lot of this is just what I think about while I'm training back, and it is more rooted in the foundational principles, some anatomy, and some functions of the lats specifically. So this isn't a best exercises video or a best workout to grow your back video. This is more to give you knowledge so that you can start to ask better questions when you are training and hopefully apply them and enhance your back training to give you some wings on that backside. So without further ado, let's get into it. All right, guys. So the first thing I want to highlight is whenever it comes to the lats, just understand that the lats are a fan-shaped muscle, meaning the fibers run in a lot of different directions. There's a little bit of vertical in some parts, and there's some horizontal fibers in other parts. And so the main thing that you want to consider here whenever you are setting up your back training is you just want to make sure that you're training both through vertical planes and horizontal planes. Now, it is not that simple because as you continue to dive deeper into what muscles specifically do, what their functions are, what their actions are, it's a little bit more nuanced than just strictly training vertical and horizontal. However, for 99% of people, that's really all that they're going to need, especially if they want to develop a good, a nice set of lats, some nice meat on the backside. So I'm not an expert in biomechanics by any means. This is just kind of how I understand it and what has been able to take my lat training and my back training to the next level. So you also want to consider that what the lat's primary functions are versus what the lat's primary actions are. And this is going to be important because of how I define what the purpose of the lats are, as well as focusing on training stability through the spine while using the lats for maximum output. So I'll explain what that means next. So whenever I say function, I am referring to what a muscle does when we walk and breathe. Why when we walk and breathe? Because that is the core of what we humans do. We walk and we breathe. That is about as functional as it gets, and therefore that is specifically how I am defining it, because whenever we are walking and breathing, our muscles are in their most advantageous, stable position, because that is our most stable position as we walk around day to day, is standing. Our center of mass is directly below us, and there's really no other place to go in that. Now, when we look at the action of the lat, this is how a muscle moves from origin to insertion. The lat, in this case of training the lat's primary action is extension of the shoulder, which means, as you can see in with this little lady here, as our arm moves back behind us. Now, key thing here, the lat is not a good hyper extender of the shoulder, meaning once you start to go back behind your shoulder this way, if you can see me down there, that's going to be more rear delts, teres, other stuff. So when we're training the lat, we just need to make sure that we are extending and wrapping the lat around, which I will get into a little bit more later as we are going through me doing some of these exercises. So before we get in, whenever you walk into any training session, any muscle group, make every rep a perfect rep. We do not need junk reps because we want to get the most out of our training and be as efficient as we possibly can. So whenever we are looking at training, let's say like a vertical pull down, such as this, the lats work better when the shoulder isn't internally rotated. So whenever you're pronated, for at least this purpose of growing larger lats, growing a wider back, I usually opt for a semi-supinated to supinated hand position. Because even if you just sit here, if you turn your hand out this way and pull back, you're going to feel a lot more rear delt and a lot more mid traps, as opposed to if you pull this way with your hand in a neutral or supinated position. You'll notice it's a lot easier for you to drive the lats and bring your elbow down. So whenever you're doing these vertical pulls, I like to do it in a neutral or semi-supinated position. And whenever I'm doing this, I'm thinking ribs down. So when we are walking and breathing, back to this function thing, the lat's primary function here is to stabilize the lumbar spine. And so if we know that the lat's primary function is to stabilize the lumbar spine, then if we can replicate this in training, then that is what is going to allow us to drive maximum force production through the lat, because it is in an advantageous position. So whenever you hyperextend your lumbar, like a lot of people will get super fucking bent back this way and go here, you can't quite get as much force production through the lat because your ribs are not stacked and it's not in that functionally advantageous position. So whenever I'm going through this, I like to think never push my elbows back, always push down and around to the top of the opposite glute. And if you just think about how the lats are inserted into the spine and up near the shoulder, that's kind of the trajectory that it takes. So as you are also, and this, another thing, and this is more for mid-back training, I'm trying to almost rotate my shoulders to touch each other. So swallow the spine is another good cue for when you're training mid-back. But for the purpose of the lats, try to think elbow down and around to the opposite glute throughout every movement. And so whenever we're doing more horizontal pulls such as this one, we want to pull, same thing, elbows straight down and around. But something I notice is a lot of people, and I used to feel my biceps a ton whenever I was doing back training, I try to keep my elbows from going past 90 degrees on this. And so if you think about it, if our goal is just to train the lat and not the biceps, then really all we're focused on is that top part of our arm. It's nothing below the elbow. It's all just the top part, because all we're concerned with is extending the shoulder and bringing our elbow down to our side and back around to that other glute. So if you feel your biceps a lot, that probably means you're hyperextending quite a bit, or how you're angled or how you are handling or where your hand position is on an implement could mean that you're getting a little bit more elbow flexion than what you need. Therefore, just try to think of keeping your arm, not letting it go past 90 degrees. And so for something like a mid-back row here, a chest-supported row here, just know more pronation means you're probably going to get more rear delt. And whenever if you are wanting to train more of the mid-back, then you need to think swallow the spine. Try to think of your shoulders rotating around your rib cage and try to swallow the spine with your scapula. And so for a good starting point for growing a wider back, first train it twice a week. Typically, more frequency is going to lead to more gains for most people, just because fitting all of your volume in one session most of the time is going to be for much more advanced lifters and lifters who get so much stimulus that they actually need to take 4 to 5 days in between the amount of times that they actually train these muscles. So go train them twice a week, 3 total exercises with 2 sets to failure on each. Now, I'm not saying absolute muscular failure, but mechanical failure, technical failure for sure, because of what I tend to find is most people that are struggling to grow muscle, they lack intensity. And I would argue that more people could, if they just simply went harder, they could be in the gym for less time and actually get more out of their sessions. So for your 2 sessions, on day 1, you'll do 1 vertical pull with 2 different types of horizontal pulls. This could be a pull down, and then with a chest supported row, and then with maybe a single arm dumbbell row. Day 2, you could do 2 vertical pulls with 1 horizontal pull. So assisted pull-ups, more pull downs, single arm pull downs. You can vary it up in any way you want. But generally speaking, this is where I would start for most people if they are wanting to grow their back and if they are not already doing this. But the main thing being, just train with intent, train hard, make every rep perfect. So there you have it for some back training tips. If any of this helped you, leave some comments below. I will have a couple of new stuff added in the description. And other than that, till next time, peace.